Japan are the team that I think every big team does not want to draw in the knockout stages. They just beat Tunisia 4-0. No Minamino, no Kubo, no Matoma, no Endo. A lot of their stars missing, and they still win because of their incredible tactics and attention to detail and how well drilled that side is. Now, it's not just that they beat Tunisia 4-0. Tunisia are pretty rubbish, but they took the Netherlands, and the Netherlands have not lost a World Cup game in 90 minutes since 2006, over 20 years, to a 2-2 draw. They made the Netherlands look average. We went and saw what the Netherlands did versus Sweden and just realized the Netherlands are very, very good, and maybe one of the best teams in the competition, and maybe one of the favorites still in the competition. Japan, without the three best players, still got a draw. The Netherlands battered a Sweden side that has Jokers, that has Isak, that has many stars. And I don't think people realize that not only are Japan doing this without their biggest players, but actually, if you look at the record of Japan and the history of football in that country, the growth of Japan, the growth of football in Japan is incredible. This is a team that didn't qualify for the first World Cup until 1998. This is a team, where football was never the biggest sport in the country. It wasn't that popular in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. It's grown. And as it's grown in Japan, have put a lot of resources and effort into football, sending their best players to Europe. We're seeing the results of that. We even saw it in the 2022 World Cup. They got put in the group of death. No one thought they'd get out of the group. And they did mad things in the group. They beat Spain. They beat Germany in their group in 2022, I believe. Do you remember this group? Japan topped a group with Spain and Germany. Japan already have a good record against the big teams going into this tournament. Obviously, in qualifying, in all of that, Japan have battered the smaller teams like Tunisia, China, Indonesia. Tunisia, obviously, just in the World Cup, but in qualifying. But it's not just that Japan are winning those games. It's not just that beating the big teams, but when they're playing the smaller teams, they're winning by a lot. Like, as I said here, Japan, when facing 11 men, only two teams on record since 1966 have completed a 500-plus passes and conceded 0 shots on target and won a game by 4+ goals. And that was Spain versus Costa Rica in 2022 and Japan versus Tunisia in 2026. Bringing up the statistic, this game versus Tunisia, without 4 of their best players, wasn't just a win from Japan, a good win. We've seen good wins. Germany, good win versus Curacao. Sweden had a good win versus Tunisia. This was utter dominance. Not one single shot on target conceded. And Japan's defense in the first round of qualifying didn't even concede a single goal in the first 6 rounds of qualifying for the World Cup. Japan were actually the first team to qualify for the World Cup because of how dominant they were as well. Japan did not concede a single shot on target. And Japan, defensively, tactically, how well drilled they are is nuts. The Japan manager, I'm not super familiar with him and his work, but the tactics, he's putting up numbers. This Japan team has it's like a game of chess in their head. How tactically well drilled they are. It is nuts. But also, they just won this game incredibly dominant. But let's go into Japan and let's talk about why none of the big teams want Japan. Why I, as an England fan, do not want to draw Japan. Why Japan are really this dangerous dark horse going into the World Cup. So, Japan have written history. They destroyed Tunisia 4-0. That's the biggest World Cup in Japan history. The biggest World Cup by an Asian team ever in World Cup history, putting Asia on the map in the World Cup. An Asian team has never won the World Cup. And it's the most goals ever scored in it's the most goals they've ever scored in a single World Cup match. The Samurai Blue are looking a force. And this is not some freak win by Japan. This isn't some shock that Japan are good. Many people had Japan as the dark horses going into this tournament. They had a 3-2 win versus Brazil last year in a friendly, a 2-0 win versus Ghana, a 3-0 win versus Bolivia, a 1-0 win versus Scotland, who were very unlucky not to get a draw, versus Morocco, who are one of the best teams at the World Cup. They beat England 1-0. As an England fan, they were so frustrating. They were so annoying to play against. I do not want to play Japan. They beat Iceland 2-2 with the Netherlands. They've nearly gone 8 for 8 against Brazil, Ghana, Bolivia, Scotland, England, Iceland, Netherlands, and Tunisia, only drawing to the Netherlands, and the Netherlands have not lost the World Cup game in 90 minutes since 2006. The Netherlands are like the best team to never win the World Cup, and they've done the last 2 games without Kubo. Actually, Kubo was in the first game. Endo, Matoma, Minamino, Kubo missing in the last game. And Japan have shown they don't need individual stars. They've got a lot of good quality players. They've got a lot of players that are playing in Europe, whether it's in the top 5 leagues or a league like the Eredivisie. They've got a lot of players playing in Europe that have played against elite competition, that have played against elite players, that are, physically ready. They know how to play in Europe. They know how to play at a high level. But what Japan have different, they don't have the Lamine Yamals or the Elises or the Mbappes or the Harry Kanes. Their star Matoma is missing. But this team is ridiculously well drilled. The instructions, every little detail, Japan know where they need to be at every second of the game. When they have the ball, what pass they need to make. It's like a game of chess for them that they've planned out in their head. The next move, do this, do that. And you have to give Japan credit. They are a force. And I want to talk about individual players. I want to talk about this team that destroyed Tunisia as well. Obviously, Kamada, I'm very familiar with his time at Crystal Palace. Tanaka obviously didn't have the best season at Leeds, but obviously in the Championship was very good at Leeds. Tomiyasu, formerly of Arsenal. Obviously the striker, I believe, is at Feyenoord. I'm not super familiar with Uda, and I apologise if I pronounce that wrong. Suzuki, obviously, once a very good goalkeeper that was once linked to Manchester United. But let's talk about Japan. This is a weakened Japan side that got a result versus the Netherlands, who, honestly, after watching the first couple of games, I think the Netherlands are genuine contenders. And I'm looking at Japan, and what they've done for Asia and what they've done for Asian football, how football's grown in that country. And I think the storyline behind Japan, incredible. But actually, the football they play, how, as I said, the structure, how well they are defensively. Obviously, didn't concede a single goal in the first 6 games of qualifying. And the only game they lost in qualifying was against Australia. Other than that, they were near perfect qualifying. But what sets Japan apart is it's not about, we've got this one star and this and that and grabbing the headlines. It is about a team that plays as a team, that everyone has a role, everyone has a part to play, and everyone knows that role and everyone else's role and understands that role. You look at players like Kamada, Uda, who were, again, I don't know if I pronounced the goal scorer's name right, so I apologize if I pronounced that wrong, but they were so good versus Tunisia. They were efficient. They knew where they needed to be. And, I look at Japan, and you know what? They actually have quite good depth. They have a lot of players that have played in Europe. They've played at the top level. They have that experience. They have that mentality. They have the physicality to go far and give big teams a hard game, and we've seen that. But we look at Japan and the depth. Key players are injured and they're still stepping up and they're still getting results. This Japan team is probably stronger than what a lot of people thought. The players are rotating and there's still an element of, I know the Netherlands game was very defensive from Japan, but if you look at the Tunisia game, it was very fluid. It was very attacking. It was very good football to watch. Set pieces. I tell you what, set pieces, Japan have been monstrous. Whether it be putting a delivery in the box or, quick transitions from the opponent's set pieces. They've been monstrous at set pieces. Every little element of the game, it's like Japan are going over tactics to define that element of the game, to be the best team at set pieces, to be the best team at this. They have their different ways of defending. They have their different roles. It's like a tactical masterclass. And look, they were not in an easy group. They have a group with the Netherlands. They have a group with Sweden who have got Isak. They've got Gyökeres. And you think Netherlands and Sweden go first and second in that group. But actually, when you look at Japan, how good they were in qualifying, how well structured they are, I fancy Japan to beat Sweden. I think Japan will be in the round of 32, and I think Japan will be a problem for whoever they face in the round of 32. I think the goalkeeper's good. I think the back line has proven to be really strong. Not a single shot on target conceded. And yes, Tunisia are hopeless, but I think the back line showed the strength. I think Japan showed that they can control possession. They've got some very good players, as you can see on my screen a second ago. But this Japan team could be a force. It really could be a force. And I was looking at Tanaka, who I think is a very underrated player, who I don't think's had his best season at Leeds, but we know what he's capable of. He just hasn't transitioned it to the Premier League. But he's won all 3 games he started for Japan. And he's the only Japanese player to win every game he started that started more than one. And I feel like he's looked really good at Japan lately. Cuba should be expected back if you make the round of 32. You've got a team that knows what they're doing, that's confident, that hasn't lost to a Brazil, that hasn't lost to an England, that hasn't lost to a Spain or Germany despite facing them in the last 4 years. You've battered the lower down teams. You've beat the big dogs, the big European dogs. Japan on their day can go toe to toe with anyone, and they are the last team I want to draw in the next round. Thank you for watching. Bye.